Hello, everyone. Welcome in this new episode, this new week regarding the Mindful Productivity Workshop. Something that I'm giving every week on that Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Central European Time, where I want to go a little bit. My echo. Where I want to go a little bit in a specific subject each week. That could be the PKS system, the personal management system, or a specific object within that personal management system for mindful productivity. That's the overarching idea. And for today, I have something interesting, fun, special in mind, which is the action management itself. What action management is, and like what kind of issues do you have? Because like I'm starting with that solution, but the trouble is you feeling overwhelmed, you feeling like busy, like your to-do list is never ending, like there keeps being more actions constantly, and you're constantly in that fear of like I'm feeling busy, busy, busy. So that's one. The other one is if you've tried to work with time boxing, and then you feel like that it doesn't really work in the way that you want it to be, then you can like use the action management tool here as well to escape that time boxing concept. Because like underlaying one here is the idea here is to experience freedom. I'm going to like put you guys a little bit lower because then I can relax, sit back. I like being in that state of relaxation. Um, if you plan your agenda, your calendar in such a way that you experience more free time, if you're if you're the one that's actually like planning free time, then this is an ideal session for you. Because in the time that you don't have an appointment somewhere, then that time is fully yours to play around in. That playfulness is very important because that is the idea where creativity and new ideas and new visions come up, and where you have that space of processing your own ideas, your own visions, your own concepts. Because everyone, like one of the premises that I have, one of the belief systems, is that we don't need to work for anyone else. We don't need to like achieve a certain thing for someone else. You are fully in control over your own time, your own focus point of where you want to spend your time in. Um, so everything that I do is based on creating more and more freedom for yourself as an individual, because that if you are feeling free, like really free from limitations or constraints or stuff that you have to do, or that feeling of feeling being busy, that reduces your stress level massively, or at least that's how I did it. Let me say it how I experienced it. Um, that reduced my stress level massively, and that redirected my focus into the stuff that I really find valuable to do, like my vision upon the world. And even like it's not even the vision upon the world, because I often said that. It's nowadays, finally, it's shifting to okay, but what's the vision that I have as a human being? Like, how do I want to have my apartment, my car, my motorcycle, my boat, my intimate relationship, my social circles, my finance, my like all of these levels. Very good in the livebook community, but let's keep on the topic of action management. So the action management itself is a certain way. It is a method of escaping the time trap. And a lot of us are stuck in that concept of a time trap. And that means Monday morning you have to do that, then Monday afternoon you have to do that, Monday evening you have to do that. and you have to go to bed on time because you need to sleep 8 hours, and then you need to wake up, and then you have to do the other thing and that other thing, like constantly planning everything full. One of the downsides is, like, let's imagine that you're human. I'm kind of expecting that you are. And you have a day that's kind of like off, or you're feeling sick, or just not as inspired to do the high quality comparison to what you expected it to be. Then, like, all of the tasks and all of the time blocks that you kind of reserved in that concept, um, kind of felt like it's falling apart. That's the correct letter. So that means, where I'm going with this. Yeah, so the concept of shifting this to managing your actions instead of managing your time is that you're buying yourself freedom in between the sessions, in between the appointments that you have. You still need to like do certain things, obviously, because we're living in this physical world around us. But it's about being in full control over all of the actions and know for yourself, as in, yeah, right now I'm not done yet, but I'm in full control over the actions that I have. And that's a very helpful one, to be in that state. Because quite often what I hear with the conversations that I have with people is they have a certain to-do list, or the I don't know the framework. They have a certain to-do list and they prioritize the most important and the most impactful things first, and the rest of the to-do lists will be like shoved downwards, as in, could be nice to have that. There is a downside on that. Let's imagine that you have 30 to-do items in your to-do list, or let me say it differently, like it could be 10. Like, don't exaggerate it. And there are 3 of those who are most important and most pressing. Then you start working on those, but there is also that 4th one, or that 5th one, or that 6th one, or that 7th one, or that 8th one. And that kind of creates that internal stress, as in, like, time's limited and you're not in control over all of your actions. So you're trying to speed up the level of doing, which kind of creates mistakes. Let's be honest. In that level of stress, in that level of to-do list which is not under control, you're creating stress as a result. And one of the solutions is then action management, concept of getting things done. And getting things done says, well, I don't know if it says, but this is me just paraphrasing based on what I understand of it, is you manage your actions instead of managing your time. And you put every action that you have, every interaction that you need to do with the physical outside world, as one of 5 categories. I'm first going to start it off with the getting things done method itself, how he explains this, and then I'm going to translate it into like my stuff, because my the words that I'm using for those 5 are a little bit different. David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done, he talks about the concept of next action, someday action, maybe waiting for, and time-bound actions. And I want to rephrase 2 of them, and these are the next action, someday action. Because in what I noticed based on the question that I received from people who I explained this concept, they started prioritizing that next action and that someday action because of that. And that's not really the underlying idea, as far as I understand it. I could be wrong. If I'm saying something that is mistaken, like feel free to comment that in the chat. Um, but what I did is I renamed the next action into an actionable must and the someday action to a not actionable must. So that means the definition of a must, let me start it on with that one. A must is something that you've agreed upon with someone else. This could also be like, well, let me say it differently. Like, what if you have a colleague of yours and you're saying like, yeah, I'll send that file within 3 days, you'll have it in your inbox. That is a definition of an agreement that you made with that person. So this will be a must action. You have to do that within the deadline of those 3 days. So you put your deadline actually in those 3 days. If you have that in your table, format CSV Excel file just in your table, the deadline is in 3 days. And there is also a different one. You could also have an appointment with like paying a bill. That's not actually something that you've agreed upon directly, but you did do that indirectly with signing a certain document. So every time that you sign a certain document, a couple of like must actions come out of this action. And that's a very important one to like realize, because then you keep being on top of all of your stuff. So paying the bill is one of them, having a doctor's appointment and then getting back like, yeah, this will be a bill that you have to pay. So that's a must action. And then there is a difference of that actionable and not actionable just yet. For example, today I had an amazing session with someone for breath work and kinesiology, so processing like human emotions, very simply said. And I need to pay the bill for this guy, like for the services that he's done. But he hasn't sent me his invoice just yet. So I know this will be an action that I need to pay. And I also know that I'm not able to pay him just yet directly at this moment because I haven't received it. And that creates that it is a not actionable must at this moment. I kind of know that it sounds tedious to do it on this level, but the challenge thing is to do as little as possible comparison to the level that you need it. If you just have one action list with 4, 5, 6 items and you are in full control of them, then this subject isn't for you. Like you don't really need this specific subject. On the other hand, if you start doing that while you are in control, then you can keep improving. So it might be useful anyway. You think that you could be thinking that you're in control, but like there's a whole another level that you might want to like unlock. But I invite you to really listen for insights here and don't listen for if I need it, yes or no. Just like grab the ideas that you find valuable. That's the most important thing here. Good. Yeah, so not actionable must at the time, and after I received his mail or his invoice, then it will move from that non-actionable must to an actionable must. So that's very nice to have that as a platform, just to have that available. Then I want to lean into the concept of the maybe action. And the maybe action is, it is the idea of something that you would like to do, but you don't have to do it. For example, Um, Go to a birthday party. You've just been invited. You don't know when it is, perhaps, because if you do know, then it might be easier to do that in your time-bound calendar. But perhaps you don't know when it is. Then you actually write it down, as in buying a present for that person. Or let me say, go to the birthday party of that person. And you having that in your maybe list will create some freedom of you not needing to think about it constantly inside of your mind. Because a lot of us are stuck in our thinking mind because we have been educated in the past to remember as much as possible because we have been um, well, we needed to remember stuff for exams, for tests, for all of those ideas. And the challenge thing itself is to externalize your thoughts, your actions, your ideas, so you can be fully present in the here and the now. And including all of these things as in a maybe action. Maybe I will do this, maybe I'll do that. Like have that in your maybe list. If you haven't agreed upon this with someone specifically, then put that in your maybe list. And I want to like add a little detail here. There is also quite often something that is habit building. Habit building is specifically different comparison to action management. Action management always starts with a verb, as in something that you need to do. Like that's also like connected to your projects, to your goals, to your vision. Like what do you want to achieve in the world? And habit building is specifically different because the goal of habit building is to not having it as an action anymore. Because you don't want to overflood your action management system with like drinking 2 liters of water each day. Like you don't actually want to like mess up the cleanness of your action management. So if we go a little bit into we've got the time. I mean, why not? Let me just take this off because I don't need that. We're just here, so just everyone who watches. Good. If you want to go a little bit deeper in habit building, the idea is to consciously choose what kind of behavior that you want, and later like reduce the resistance to such a level that you're just repeating that level of behavior. You're just doing the stuff that you want to achieve. So you don't want to like make your action management dirty because of that. Good. So that's the maybe action. There is a nuance here. If you agreed upon with yourself, for example, like, yeah, I'm going to choose to do a certain workshop, webinar, something else, like you actually consciously chose, I will do this for sure. Because the challenge is your word becomes your bound. And even the word that you take upon yourself, with yourself, is something that you will find benefit with. Because it's your own subconscious that's actually listening to your state of, you're the one, like, you are in control over what you do constantly, all of the time. Yeah, so if you agreed upon that with someone else, then or with yourself, like actually like a deadline, like actually an agreement, then put it in your must actions. Good, and then we go into a very very powerful one. That is something called the waiting for action list. And it's a very interesting one because I still need to fill in the one that I had from this afternoon. Let me see if I can do this directly because this will be a fun exercise. Like the storyline that I just mentioned, as in I went to a session from someone, certain coach, and I know he will send me an invoice for his services, and I know that I will pay him. So I'm going to add in my system, pay this guy, and I can actually add the price already because I know his price points. But now the tricky thing is, like, what makes it not actionable at this moment? I don't have an invoice. So what is the action that I'm currently doing? Is I'm currently waiting for him to send the invoice. So you fill in that concept of the waiting for the invoice, and you're doing that in that column of waiting for the invoice. Obviously, waiting for the invoice of his specific name. Amazing. So that makes sure that I know whenever I'm looking at my action list, I'm full control, as in, okay, what kind of stuff am I still waiting for? What kind of actions are like will have to be done, but for some reason they are not able to be done. And that clarifies sometimes, especially if you're leaning into that level of procrastination. If you agreed upon with someone else in, I'll send a business offer within 24 hours. Or not even a time zone, just I'm sending out a business proposition. Then you're going to put it on your not actionable musts. That's the starting point, because you're asking yourself, okay, can I start with this right now? Like, write down or write down the offer and then mail that to him. Or if the action itself is send the offer to that specific client. That's the must action. But you notice yourself, as in, yeah, but I'm not actually doing that just yet. Like, what am I missing? Then there is a step before that. And especially if you're a little bit troubled with procrastinating, then you really need to like make the big goal a little bit smaller. As in, okay, but first like write down the offer. Okay, if you've done that, and you still notice that you're kind of like struggling with that, okay, like set the price point for the offer. Okay, great. Is that enough? Could be. Or if that isn't enough, then it's like, okay, what would you need to do to know the price points? Calculate your expenses, for example. Like, and I want to like say this again. It really sounds tedious when I'm kind of saying it like this. But I noticed for myself, the more humble that I became based on where I was struggling with, the better I became. So the invitation here as well is really be in that state of humbleness. As in, hey, are you struggling with a specific part within that action management system or within that procrastination in general? Then do it like this. So this could also be, I had that recently, I needed to call someone and I didn't really know like what to say in that moment. So it first started off with an actionable must, as in call this guy with the answer that you have. And I was looking at the task, and it's like, yeah, but there is something like before that. Like I wasn't calling this guy. I could have, but I didn't do that at that time. And I started asking myself, as in, okay, but what's here the missing action that I need to do first before I actually can start the guy, can call the guy? I'm like, yeah, like write down what you want to say to him. Because I really barely understood what I wanted to say to him. And that's not actually like writing down as in, yes, hello, my name is Tim, all of that stuff, that introductional stuff, that's fine. But it's like, okay, but with which goal are you actually going into this conversation? Like in the ideal situation, what do you like to see happening? Is this you sending out a piece of information as in, this is my conclusion? Is it something that you want to make a sale? Is it something that he needs to do for you? Like, it could be anything. But writing down your action in that moment is very valuable if you notice yourself like lacking upon this specific thing. Um, which creates quite often what I learned. The more and more that you do this, the more and more that your impact kind of grows, because it's not about like calling the boss. I don't know. Imagine if you're sick, calling the boss, and you're like struggling with calling the boss because you don't feel like having that interaction with him. Okay, calling the boss is something that I need to do because I need to inform him that I'm not there, for example. Okay, then like write down, my goal here is to inform him that I'm not here. I want to thank him very much for this and this and this. Could be anything. I want to repeat myself because we have the time, we have the hour. Like it sounds tedious if you're already in that state. But it doesn't sound so tedious if you're struggling with this. And the idea, the humbleness, is to admit that you're struggling with that. You don't need to admit that to him as a person, like to the to your boss. You don't need to do that. But it is like humbling saying that to yourself, as in, yeah, I'm kind of struggling with this. Like, what's going on? What's holding me back here? And really tune into yourself, as in, breathe it in. Like, okay, what's going on? What is making me not do this specific step? And so that's a very, very strong one to lean into. Good. I kind of got messed up, not really, but mixed up. That's the better word. Um, and then there's something called the time-bound actions. This is a very interesting one. And to be honest, the time-bound action is so powerful for me. The like really understanding that in a deep level was really, it was really next level because it created some freedom. Like it's escaping that moment of time trap, that feeling of busy, that needing to organize my life based on time boxes. And it made sure that I was on time with appointments all of the time constantly, that I was just in control and that I could relax like half an hour. Like, no, it's good. Like I'm taking care of stuff. Could actually started to like relax internally, which was a very, very important one. Um, yeah, same goes for your agenda or for your email box, by the way. If you have a full email box, then action management system is a great way to actually like go over your emails as in, okay, is this something that I need to do? Okay, if it's a yes, great. Can you do it right now within 2 minutes? The 2 minute rule. And if you can't do this within 2 minutes, then write it down either as an actionable must or not actionable must if you need to do that. Or if it's a maybe, like if it's a newsletter, you're like, maybe I want to read this one. Great, write it down as your maybes. Because that creates that you have that freedom whenever you have an hour to spare. You're just going to look at your maybe list after your must list, but your maybe list, as in, yeah, is there something that I want to do right now that I kind of wanted to do at that moment? Because that's withholding you from being distracted by the very powerful social media feeds. So I hope this episode is not even like um, diverging your attention to something else. But I'm guessing not. Um, but every time that you have that half an hour, 3 hours to spare, that you're like, yeah, let me go through my waiting for list, as in, is there something, sorry, my maybe list, is there something that I want to do right now? So this could be fun things as well. Like for me, it's visiting Eliza Wellness. It's part of this here. Eliza is then the wellness sauna wellness centrum. Um, like that's an option if I have a full free day. Like, yeah, I mean, why not? And the other one is watch the 10x productivity quest because I like being on top of the colleagues that also like work within the productivity field. Like, great, let me tune into that one. It's a maybe. I don't need to do that per se. I haven't agreed upon that. It will not really affect my business side, but if I want to look at it, great. Create a thumb list. Listen to 1 hour podcast. I actually mentioned as in the 1 hour podcast. I also added the link. So if I'm like, yeah, I feel like listening to something now, when you're walking outside, I'm like, yeah, I've got something available. Um, or the quest, or breathing through a nose. That's based on the quest that I'm doing. Obviously, like I'm doing that most of the time anyway. Most of the time. Um, and it creates for me that state of, hmm, because breathing through the nose is for me, it's more a habit that I'm integrating. And that's kind of outside of this container. And how I did that, very practically. Um, I have within my action list, I have a checkbox saying if it's a action, if it's a habit or not. And if it's a habit, then I'm going to filter it out. Let me say this is a not, yeah. If this checkbox is signed in, then it's a habit, and then it gets filtered into a different list. So that would be the habit list. So I've got one big database of all of my actions, and based on the variables that they have, they get put into one of those 5 plus the habits list. So having that completely off. Good. Um, yeah, the time bound. The time bound is a very interesting one, as in, um, what kind of appointments do you have in your life? Like, what have you agreed upon? If you work for like a hot dog stand, for example, you actually have a shift between like 7 and 3. That's like an appointment that you have because you've agreed upon with someone else. Could be like the clients indirectly with like opening times. Between 7 and 3, you're there and you're working for them. You're offering that service. That could be one. The other, um, yeah. So like imagine if you have an appointment with someone, like I had this morning with that coach. 9 o'clock, I'm there at that location. That's also a time bound action because the action for me is me being there and being part of his coaching. Like that's an action from my side. Um, there is then also something called the maybe list, and the maybes are also very powerful to integrate that into your time bound action. Because let's imagine that you are um, having webinars. Nowadays, there are so many people that are giving webinars, and a webinar is yeah, a webinar is something that you could go to, but you don't need to do that. Or you have weekly appointments with a specific group, but you don't need to be there per se. So that creates that in your agenda that you have a maybe action with specifically different color, and you could go into that appointment, but you don't need to do that unless you say to the owner of that group, you agreed upon, as in, yeah, I'll be there, I'll show up, or even one of the other like other participants, like, okay, let's go into that webinar together. Like, if I agreed that with someone else, even if it's not the owner, then my maybe appointment becomes a must appointment because my word becomes my bound. Like, doesn't matter to who, but my word becomes my bound. So that's a very important one to know, to understand. Good, kind of checking on time. We have about 10 minutes remaining. So, how to start with this whole stuff? Start with actually like writing down the actions that you need to do. Like, think about all of the stuff that you can come up with. Ideally, you want to create yourself a brain dump, and that's one centralized spot where you put in all of your data, put in all of your actions, and based on that, so first capturing the whole concept. Tiago Forte talks about that, like capture first, and then the second thing is organizing it. So capturing the data in one centralized spot. This could be like a physical material that you have in front of you, like a box beside you. Capture everything physically, like writing everything down, having it here. And then the second thing is to organize it, to decide upon, okay, is this an action that I need to do? And if it's an action, then it's about writing that out with a verb at the beginning. There are two little nuances here that I kind of want to explain a little bit. Did wonders for me, by the way. Especially in the English language, start with a verb for every action. That will probably force you to think about the action itself. Like, okay, but what do I need to do? Like, invoice coach. That could be an action that many of us like write it down like this. That's at least how I did it in the past. Invoice coach. But when I would see that, then I'm like, okay, like, what with invoice coach? Like, what do I need to do with that? Do I need to like wait for it? Do I need to pay it? Do I need to like receive anything? Like, kind of sounds tedious, but like me remembering that difference is withholding me to be fully present in the here and now with you guys at this moment. So that's quite nice to have that like written down. So first starts with a verb, and the second thing is write it as if it is for your personal assistant. And that kind of clarifies things because quite often we remember what we mean with a specific task, but if I'm doing it correctly, and I'm not doing that with every, well, partially. If I'm checking through my own list, then I could actually like give my list to a personal assistant and say to that personal assistant, do this list. Because the present person that you are right now is different comparison to the future person that you are right now. The future person that you will be. And you being in that state of the here and now will be created if you leaned into these action management systems more and more. This, of course, like one little part of it comparison to all of the different things. But if you're struggling with managing your actions, managing your calendar, and procrastination and overwhelm, or prioritization, oh, guys, then this system is for you. So start with a verb and write it for your as if it's for your personal assistant. And then something else. Yeah. And then something else, like the priorities. The way that I see it, tune it in as the way that you want it to be. But in my vision, there are no multiple priorities. None. I just have like my focus point right here is you. That's it. And other than that, like, what if the house would burn down? Then that becomes my priority. Then, like, guys, live stream, it's okay. Like, I'm out. I've got different thing. Then the whole project, like, it doesn't really matter. And the challenge thing is, like, the priority is your focus point. If you have multiple priorities, then you don't really have your life in control just yet. Doesn't mean that I have it fully, but the the goal is to be in control over your life. And control means um, knowing what you needed to do, what you agreed upon doing, and experiencing that freedom afterwards. Because control doesn't mean like rigid and having less space to flourish as a human being, as just enjoying human life. But it's more that state of, yeah, let's enjoy the free time that we have. Or no, let's enjoy the time that we have just in general. And sometimes you need to do certain things. Okay, great, no worries. And in the ideal situation, you want to like line up your actions that you need to do to your ideal goal. Because I kind of like this life goal, for example, and offering value for the people that right now listen or will listen to the future. Like I like that state. And if you're leaning into this side, you can like tune into, okay, these actions I like more and more and do those and automate the stuff that you don't like that much. And that would be the ideal situation beneath all of this. Good. And I kind of want to add a different thing. Something called something from um, Sadhguru. And he says, you're not your body and you're not even your mind. He has a specific meditation upon that as well. Like a yogi, for those who don't know him. He's a spiritual leader and spoken for the UN and all of the different um, platforms, personal development, stuff like that. And partially with this managing your actions, you are externalizing your own ideas, your things that you need to remember, that you think that you need to remember. Because we're not here to remember things. We're here to express life in the fullest version of us. And with that concept in mind, it kind of led me or connected this whole productivity stuff away from that dark side of productivity, as in needing to do more, and tuned that into mindful productivity. So that's finding that peace underneath it, finding that rest. Good. Kind of want to close it off with this one. I thank you very much. I hope it was very valuable for you as just you. If this specific video really resonated with you, feel free to like send me a message on my website, so timgoerts.com/aim, that specific one, or within that one is specific. And if you want to have a conversation one-on-one, I just give one free discovery call at the beginning, which is fine, and then we can see if we can do anything for each other. Good. Um, I thank you very much, and I wish you the best. Have a great day. Bye bye.